When it comes to balancing flavor, acid is really, really important. Not as important as salt, but almost as important. So you've got a lot of different acidic ingredients. And when it comes to acid, it's pH based, right? So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the pH scale, but the lower the number of an item's pH, the more acidic it is. So lemons are actually super acidic. And these lemons are going to be your number one acid in the kitchen. Not only are they easy, they're cheap, like they're common, you can find them anywhere. And you can use regular lemons like I do. You can buy bottled lemon juice that you keep in the fridge. And I know a lot of folks have the little squeezy lemon, like the little plastic lemon. And, you know, people are going to talk shit about the little plastic lemon. And I get it, because it's kind of fake lemon juice, but ultimately, like, having these around, lemons go bad. Like, lemon juice in the fridge, sometimes that goes bad. That little lemon, that stupid lemon, is gonna last you till like the dawn of time, till the end of time. Like, it's really handy. So if the only thing that you can keep in your kitchen to acidify your food so that they're more balanced is the plastic lemon, then go for it. Beyond lemons, like, you've got a whole range of other citrus. Like, you've got tangerines, you've got regular oranges, and you can use the juice, which is really great. You can use, you know, orange juice, pineapple juice from your fridge. Another really handy thing to add a little bit of flavor to your food from a lemon is to zest it, which is just taking a zester or a very fine grater and just like scraping the top yellow layer off and adding it to your food. What that'll do, it'll give it a lemon flavor without making it more acidic. You've also got Dijon mustard. This is a great way to add acid to your food. It's also got a little bit of emulsifier in it, so if you're adding it to like a salad dressing, this will actually help keep it together and keep it from separating. You've got ketchup, right? Everybody's other favorite acid ingredient. Like, ketchup is highly acidic. There's a lot of vinegar in here. So anything that you add ketchup to is gonna bump up its acidity, and it's gonna taste more full, more round. You've got balsamic vinegar. Balsamic vinegar is great. It's a little bit sweet, a little bit tart. It hits all the right notes. It's got some caramely notes, sometimes some fruity notes, depending on what kind you're using. There's also red wine vinegar and white wine vinegar, which are really common, really cheap to buy at the grocery store. They come in handy as well, especially for like salad dressings, that sort of thing. Got relish or sauerkraut or other pickled and fermented items. You know, relishes and pickled items tend to be sweet as well, but they've got that like acidic bite that you're really looking for to kind of like balance out your food. And then these guys. I get a lot of question about wines because people know that wine tastes good, but nobody knows what kind of wine to use. So this is kind of your go-to acid if you're doing like a sauce, right? If you were to take like a lemon and try and deglaze a pan after browning meat, like, it would taste awful because you would need a lot. And the thing about using wine is it's acidic. It adds that acidic layer to your food, but it also cooks off a lot of the liquor as you're cooking it. So it's not gonna get you wasted. It's safe, for the most part, safe to, you know, feed to little kids. But when you're cooking with wine, generally your choices are gonna be red wine and white wine. And so you always want to pick a dry wine. Like, you don't want to add a sweet wine because it's going to kind of muddy the flavors. You want to add something like dry and acidic, with those being its core values. And, you know, you can use cheap wine. That's great. Like, I sometimes cook with like $2 or $3 chuck, depending on what state you're in and how much it costs. And it's great. But the general key is that you don't want to put wine in your food that you wouldn't drink. So cheap wine is fine, as long as you like the flavor. If you don't like the flavor, if you think it's gross, don't put it in your food either, because it's not going to improve the flavor of your food. And then when picking wines, dry wines to cook with, the two that I generally stick to is Sauvignon Blanc for white and Cabernet Sauvignon for red. And what these do is they're dry, they've got a little bit of personality, but the personality that they bring to the table doesn't overpower your food. What they really bring is like a really solid, dry, acidy flavor that will balance all your other flavors. Generally, white wines are used with like vegetables, chicken, fish, like lighter things. Red wines are generally used with like really meaty, heavy things, so like stews, like making a sauce from a roast, that sort of thing. These two, if you're like really interested in like upping your cooking, are gonna be your best friends. So the reason acid is so important is it balances other flavors, but it also acts as a palate cleanser, and it cuts through like really fatty, rich foods, right? So if you have a burger, like, and it's a beautiful burger, it's really fatty, like, you know, it's got like all those meaty notes and it's been browned and it's cooked well. It's delicious, right? But then you add pickles to it and it's like it's infinitely better, right? And that's the case for any sort of acid, right? Like, if you have a really gorgeous salad, like if you use like a nice acidic salad dressing, like a vinaigrette, like it really just adds something more. And it's really important with balancing your flavors because, you know, if you're eating something heavy or meaty or fatty, like the weight of that fat can really exhaust your palate. And after a couple bites, you don't really taste very much anymore. And so adding, you know, some sort of acid like wine or lemon or relish or ketchup or mustard or any of these, like it refreshes your palate. It kind of like cleanses the palate so that it's open to more fatty flavors versus just shutting down because it's been totally overloaded. So when you're cooking with acids and you're making things like stews or braises, you know, if you're like braising a roast or if you're making like a beef stew or a vegetable stew, since you add these in the beginning when you deglaze your pan after you've seared your ingredients for the stew or the braise, like your acidifying is done. Like you don't really need to worry about it beyond that. What you can do is later down the line is you can like taste it before it's done, add a little bit more wine or vinegar or whatever you're using to cook with and taste it and like think again, like pause and think about how it tastes. If it doesn't sing, if it doesn't hit that like zing note, if you don't go, oh, this is amazing, like then it probably needs more acid or it needs more salt. And for that, you should check out the salt chapter. But your acid and your salt, like they should both hit the same kind of zing. They should both hit the same kind of like high note. Like you'll know it. You can feel it here when something has enough acid in it, and it just kind of like explodes through your whole head, and it's amazing. It makes a huge difference. There's other things that you can do, like pickles and mustard. These are more like seasoning acids if you want to add them after the fact. So you would add relish or pickles to your burger, or you would add mustard to your hot dog or mustard to your salad dressing or whatever. Something you stir in at the very end or even use as a garnish. So like if you just have like standard pickles or like pickled watermelon rinds or, you know, sauerkraut that you serve on the side, those are more finishing acids. Sort of like finishing salt is sprinkled over the top to give it texture. Like finishing acids are sprinkled over the top or incorporated last just to give it a little bit more flavor. One more thing to keep in mind with acids is you don't want to add them to dry beans in the early stages of cooking. So what acid does is it changes the pH of the water and it changes the pH of the beans, and it can make your beans kind of tough. And depending on the bean, like it can make them a little, like if you want your beans to be creamy, they can kind of hold together longer, or sometimes they just fully become like tough and weird textures. So if you're making dried beans and you're making them from scratch and you're just like cooking them throughout the day, you don't want to add any acidic ingredients like lemon or wine until the very, very end. You can add them probably about an hour before they're done cooking, so they do still absorb into the beans, but you don't really want to add them any sooner than that because like changing the texture of the beans is really no bueno. So now that you've got a solid grasp of acid, what I want you to do is I want you to go buy some acids, not that kind of acid, like legal acids. So get some Dijon, get some like pickly stuff, pickles, relish, get some sauerkraut, get some, you know, Sauvignon Blanc, get some Cabernet Sauvignon, balsamic vinegar, red wine vinegar. Just grab a couple different things. Like if you're really interested in like more of a global palate, like you can go get like mirin or rice wine vinegar, which are amazing for like Asian dishes. They work really well in salads as well. Just grab some fun things and play with them. And when you're cooking, like think about what do you think would taste good and add it. And really the only way to nail down your flavoring is by practice.